Hello everyone, Nika here. How are you guys doing today? I have your daily neuro nugget and you guys you begged me to go back to this topic regarding Kaylee's alleged stalkers, right? And we are going back in time trying to go over everything, go over all of the data, go over all of the people that were supposedly looked into. Now, it's great that you guys brought this up. By the way, if you ever want to bring anything up to me, but you're too scared or too shy to speak up on here, do as a lot of you guys have been doing, and that is you can always reach out to me through my Instagram, and I promise I'm going to keep your name private. I'm not going to tell the world, that you're giving me information or that you're wanting me to address very specific topics. In this case, this was by viewer request, right? So did we dismiss Kaylee's stalker too soon? Now we're going back to this because a lot of people said a lot of things regarding Kaylee's stalker, and it was put out in the media in the very early days. And then we all some of us, not all of us, forgot about it. We were told, don't worry. Chief Fry told us everything is okay. Don't worry, babe. We've looked into everybody. But I personally want to know if these people, I say these people, because if you and I are recalling correctly, there were two young men that were caught on video that are appearing to follow Kaylee for a hot minute. And according to law enforcement who did interviews time and time again, they said, don't worry, people, these two young men are not stalking Kaylee. They were just out there, just hanging out. But when I went back and analyzed that video, let me know if you have watched that video, please, in the chat. And what do you think? Does it look like they are following her? Again, as a friendly reminder, these are my opinions, my theories. So I can say that. It is my opinion that it looks like they are following her. Now, I did pull up one of the interviews that was done by the shop owner, right? Or not the owner, I'm sorry, the shop worker, where he says that Maddie and Kaylee had been to this shop, this vape shop in downtown Moscow several times, right? And the manager did this interview and said that he actually knew Kaylee and Maddie and that they'd been there several times, 6 or 7 times, and that he had a lot to say about the potential of this stalker. So he did this interview with News Nation, of course, News Nation, and he basically had a lot to say, right? He said that Kaylee and Maddie would both come in very happy, very friendly. They were always just so happy with such a smile on their face. Pretty much you would say the light of the world. Pretty much, always happy, go lucky. They always came in just chatting. They always came in with the group. Like I said, they probably, I'd say 4 or 5 girls at most all the time. They come in together. And I made a joke about it earlier. It was like, hey, coming together and stuff like that, it's nice. See you go trying to stay safe. One of them more or less openly said, oh yeah, we've had a friend of ours be stalked before. So this is kind of why we all travel in a group. So somebody in this group of girls that was, they were constantly going to this vape shop, basically came forward and told this manager, yeah, we travel in a pack because one of our own friends here has been stalked. Do you think that that's just made up? I personally don't think so. I think that if a woman is sharing this with somebody, it's probably because it's true, right? It's probably because they have been followed or something. And this person went on to say like this, and it was Kaylee who said that. Do you remember? So, the interviewer asked the manager shop, was it Kaylee who said that? And he says, no, it was actually Maddie who said that. So Maddie said it was kind of like more mentioning to Kaylee, like who was right next to her. So you could tell that they obviously were trying to keep Kaylee safe, you know, and to be there for her as good friends. And then, yeah, to know that a few weeks later, I won't see their, you know, faces anymore or anything like that. So this manager that did this interview said that Maddie basically mentioned that Kaylee had a stalker in front of the entire group. Openly said this to the manager. If you're in here already, please let me know. Do you think that this was made up or not? I don't think so. And what I also personally find very interesting is that this was mentioned, according to the manager, only 3 weeks before the murder. 3 weeks before the murder. So is it possible that we dismissed Kaylee's stalker too soon? Now, we have all seen the interviews of Mr. and Mrs. Gonsalves, and what do they say in these interviews that they've given time and time again? They say Kaylee was aware that she was a very beautiful girl, that this could cause some problems, as all of us beautiful ladies know, can attract a lot of weirdos. And they mentioned that because she was aware of how she looked, she was always very, very cautious, and that she was always very aware of her surroundings. And they have referred to Kaylee Gonsalves as basically a crime sleuth. Now, I have a question for all of you guys, and yes, I have addressed this before. If you've already heard this, you can just leave. It's okay. You're not going to hurt my feelings. But I am mixed. I am torn. Like, my mind is confused about the comments that the Gonsalves have made, again, because they have time and time again contradicted themselves in several interviews, but also because, let's be honest with each other for once, please, let's be honest, right? There are a few people, and I've mentioned this before, that if you get into crime sleuthing or true crime or whatever, and you start becoming a little paranoid, a little delulu, a little unstable, then you need to back off. And there have been so many people, I've told so many of the viewers here, look, if this case is getting to be too much for you, you need to back off. You need to take care of your mental health first and then go from there. Because this stuff is heavy. This stuff is not for everybody, and not everybody has the tools to decompress after they talk about these topics. So yes, babe, your mental health comes first. That being said, a lot of people that are drawn into true crime sleuthing, as as some people mention, get a little bit too paranoid. It gets to be too much for them. And I just have to wonder, is it possible that Kaylee was, yes, aware of her surroundings, or was she being paranoid and hyper vigilant? Because Mr. Gonsalves in one interview said that Kaylee would often call mom and dad and say, oh my God, somebody is following me, help. Oh, just kidding. They turned to the 7-Eleven parking lot. Is it possible that she was going a little bit delusional, a little bit paranoid? And again, this is actually very, very common. When we start getting in the world of true crime, you have to have extremely high levels of self-awareness, because if you don't, babe, your mental health can very quickly go down the drain. Again, we can all handle true crime to different levels. So yes, your mental health comes first. So is it possible that she was going a little bit delusional? Or is it possible that maybe, just maybe, she was actually being stalked and followed, and she was not going crazy? Because I know a lot of you beautiful people out there in this channel have also had your own cases of stalking. And a lot of the times when some of us are being stalked, we understand that a lot of the stalkers are not going to be so outright. They're not going to just show their face. They might happen to follow you and then turn into the 7-Eleven parking lot. And then you might think you're going a little bit insane, and then turns out that you were right the whole time. So it's very difficult to know what was actually happening. What I do find a little bit strange, maybe not so strange, again, we have to put ourselves in the shoes of Kaylee Gonsalves. She was rather young, never really been away from home. Why was she calling her parents? And even Christy and Steve mentioned that they would often say, Kaylee, why are you calling us? If you're being stalked, call the police. Call the police. By the way, if you ever suspect somebody's following you or you happen to see the same car over and over again, you always want to get the cops involved, right? Even if it's just to document something, especially if it's like the same person over and over again. Now, I just think it's very, very strange that the two men that we have seen in the surveillance video that appear to be following Kaylee were very quickly dismissed by law enforcement. And again, because it was so early on and they were so focused on Mr. Koberger, at that time, we did not know that there had been other sources of unknown male DNA at the crime scene. So all of our efforts, not ours, but Moscow Police Department and law enforcement in general, were just zoning in on Mr. Koberger, planning this crime around him, versus where you should actually follow the evidence. And I personally believe that a lot of people were dismissed very, very early. And I just think it's strange that you have footage of these two young men that, in my opinion, appear to be following Kaylee. How did you dismiss them? How did you rule out that they have not been stalking Kaylee? Because from what we have heard, it basically sounds that law enforcement just asked them, hey, so by the way, were you following Kaylee? What do you think these guys are gonna say? Of course we weren't. Okay, you're clear then. You're clear. You're good to go. You can go home now. And I don't know what law enforcement does in those cases, especially because when these two young men were being looked into, Kaylee had already passed away, so it's kind of difficult to get her side of the story, right? I personally think that we need to go back and investigate these two young men, but that's just my opinion. And I personally think that we should go back and question the manager of this vape shop, because maybe the girls mentioned who the guy was. Could they have mentioned who the guy was? I don't know. She may have had a stalker, but I do not think that it was Brian Koberger. Again, sorry guys. I think I'm getting sick. I don't think it was Brian Koberger. Because Brian is doing a PhD program, doesn't have time to do this type of thing, I don't think. Now, I don't know, is it possible that the two stalker theory of the two young men that we see in the video that appear to be following Kaylee, were they following Kaylee or were they not involved? Or is this just another distraction? Because a lot of other people have theorized that the people that were more likely to stalk Kaylee could have been two undercover cops, not just two regular guys. I got a comment from somebody saying two regular guys aren't going to stalk one female. That doesn't make any sense, because most stalkers stalk on their own, right? You're not going to get two average men to stalk one person. But if there are two undercover cops and you were trying to threaten and you are trying to intimidate a young woman who is always trying to surround herself in a pack of other young women because she's afraid, well then, if you have two undercover cops doing the stalking, then it kind of makes sense. Not to mention, we've seen undercover cops in the vicinity of 1122 King Road a lot, right? That being said, as a pretty girl myself, I'm not bragging, I'm not ugly, right? I'm not ugly. A lot of you pretty girls, maybe you're a pretty guy, I don't know. Some of us can have the idea that we're being followed. And sometimes it's just, I don't know, a guy in public that's trying to work up the courage to talk to you. That doesn't really equate stalking, right? It's like he's just being weird because he doesn't know how to approach you. That being said, we also have Kaylee's ex-boyfriend that, in my opinion, comes across as like he was potentially keeping tabs on her. And on top of that, we have all seen the snarky comments on her social media posts that absolutely could be considered stalking, in my opinion. Even as an ex-boyfriend, you are not supposed to be boyfriend or ex-boyfriend or just any regular guy. The type of comments that the ex-boyfriend here left, these snarky, disgusting, disrespectful comments that were left on Kaylee's social media posts, to me, I find very disturbing. No normal man, no healthy man is going to say, yeah, especially if Kaylee's your ex, you're not going to say, I'm done, I'm going to need a rag after this picture. Because that's insinuating something gross, right? And for the guilters, Babe, the prosecution literally said that Brian Koberger was not stalking or following any of the victims, right? If anybody stalked the victims and watched the house, because of the situation that existed in Moscow where there was law enforcement everywhere, even prior to the IDAHO4, I would say that what makes the most sense is that if anybody stalked the victims and watched the house, it would be law enforcement, okay? Showing up at your house on bogus noise complaints, especially the visit that Payne and Rosenthal made during the middle of the day, and then lied. They lied about having a complaint, okay? It's the same visit that Payne and Rosenthal go directly to the back patio door. Why would they go to the back rather than the front door, okay? The same visit where Payne says, there's no stairs from the second floor balcony, okay? This is the same visit where Officer Rosenthal takes the picture of Kaylee's driver license on his cell. I don't care if you're a little bit delusional and you're saying, taking pictures of girls and their IDs, if you're a cop, is normal. That's allowed. That's not normal, okay? Both officers lied. Both officers were out of line, in my opinion, right? But it's also interesting to me to show how family members can know very little about their own children, right? Again, when we are seeing the vape shop owner or the vape shop manager do this interview, he seems to know quite a bit of information, but then when the families question, they appear to have like zero clue, right? In that same video where we see the Gonsalves family, I don't know, his facial expressions when they're being questioned about Jack Decor, okay, in my opinion, go back and watch those very old interviews. To me, his facial expressions say it all. And I'm just wondering, is there anything at all that SG Jr. knows that he's being told he cannot speak of it, because he looks like he's holding himself together, like he wants to say something, but he can't. And his body language, their body language, all change when Jack Decor is mentioned. But that's just my opinion, guys. Let me know if you enjoyed this video. I actually have a plane to catch, so wish me luck. And see you guys soon. By the way, if you think that we dismissed the stalker theory too soon, or some of the potential stalkers that we covered in this video, please leave a 1. If you think there was no stalker, leave it 2. See you guys soon. Take care, guys.